Right, this is the Quo-Cast. My name is Jamie Dyer, and I'm here today with Darren, who is he is a Quo fan. When was your first exposure to Quo?
First exposure was literally as far back as I can remember. Due to my mother, she was a fan. So I couldn't really pinpoint a year or an age. It was just something I've always known, if that makes sense.
What was your first album?
Well, the first one I actually physically bought myself was Live at the NEC, the 1982 one. I had a bit of a hiccup with that as well, because bit of an idiot thing. It turned out it was already on my mum's box pack for from the makers of. So it was a needless purchase in the end as well. I got home thinking I'd done something great, with a little cut-out sleeve on the front. Look what I've got. And she's like, yeah, but I've already got that. It's in this box. So that was my first album.
Well, it's all right. You had your own copy.
Yeah, well, I did, yeah. And they both got scratched on the same song, Roll Over, Lay Down, so that was a bit of a coincidence as well. The days of scratching vinyls, yeah.
Definitely. So, have you seen the band many times live?
I've seen them quite a few times, but nothing on the scale of what many of the Quo army seem to be. They're into the astronomical amounts. I think in total I'm round, it'll be touching 20 in total, which is not a lot compared to many fans.
No, but it's still quite a sizable number, especially compared to my free times seeing the band. Do you have a particular gig that was particularly memorable?
I think the most memorable one I had was the Leeds Duchess of York on the pub tour. That'd be 1999. Yeah, we had to sleep out on the pavement when the tickets went on sale to try and get the tickets for it. And that was a long night sitting on the streets of Leeds City Centre. But the guy that used to run the Duchess, he came out several times during the night. He was doing his paperwork, bringing us coffee and biscuits and things like that. So it was a good evening spent.
That whole pub tour thing was a really interesting idea, wasn't it?
It was absolutely bonkers. I don't know how they managed to pull it off. The amount of people that were scrambling for tickets was, ridiculous. So I was quite pleased to get a ticket. But I know a lot of other venues were even, the Duchess held, I think it was 200, which I think was one of the bigger venues on the tour. And some of the photographs I'd seen from the other ones, I think it was like the Ruskin Arms, places like that, they were just smaller. How the evening went, sound-wise, view-wise, I have no idea, but it was very, very hot at the Duchess.
Well, I can imagine so in such a small place. When was the last time you saw them live?
The first reunion for the Frantic Four, so I kind of, which we'll come to in a moment, I dare say, I ended it on a high with the Frantic Four, which I'm quite pleased about. Looking back in hindsight,
I saw them on the second night at Hammersmith in 2013, and they were just on fire that night.
Well, it's really confusing because I felt like Manchester, it was storming. I mean, especially Parfit. At times he just stepped to the back of the stage, went against the stack, and it was as though he was absorbing the whole event rather than being part of it. If that makes sense. But afterwards, reading interviews, especially with Rossi, he seemed to think it was all a bit of a hash and it shouldn't really have gone ahead because they hadn't rehearsed enough. And I was thinking, well, not from our side of the stage. I mean, I don't know anybody that left those gigs disappointed, apart from the main man.
It was all about the feeling, and certainly Parfit really embodied that. You make reference to ending on a high. Is there a particular reason that you won't go and see the band as they are right now?
Originally, I kind of frowned it a bit. I did initially buy tickets because I used to live over in Yorkshire. I'm a Yorkshireman by birth. For the past 7, nearly 8 years, I've lived in North Antrim in Northern Ireland, and we did buy tickets for the Belfast date for the last of the Electrics. Obviously, Parfit was in the band at that point. When Parfit was first, he's taken over, we fully expected the whole tour to be postponed because I couldn't see any way on earth that I know they'd done a couple of gigs prior to that point without Parfit when it went too well, one-offs, which I can kind of understand, but a full tour to proceed without Rick Parfitt. I was thinking, you cannot do this. And they did. So I contacted the venue. I said, look, I'd like to get a return on these tickets. And they said they'd had notification from Quo management, no refunds, which I raised an eyebrow at that. So I contacted the Quo management through the website, and the lady that sent the emails back, she was quite polite about it, but they said under terms and conditions of issued tickets, blah, 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 they would not be issuing refunds. So I looked into it a bit further, and they were still advertising the tour with Rick Parfitt on the posters. And I said, look, you can't be advertising this tour with Parfitt on the posters when he's not even playing. And they still wouldn't ship. So in the end, I contacted the national press. I know a lot of Quo fans will hate me for that, but I had the bit between my teeth. I was annoyed. So I contacted the national press. Words seemed to get around online rather quickly, and it snowballed. And I was getting emails from various people in different parts of the country, at UK, saying, we're in the same boat. We're not interested. Why are they going ahead without Parfitt? I recontacted the management again. I said, look, I'm getting people emailing me from everywhere about this, and they said, yeah, fair enough, you can get a refund on your tickets. Contact the ticket office, use this code, and we got a refund. So that could have been the last time I saw them, but it wasn't. But since that point, after Rick died, good friends of ours, Quo fans, were like, well, that's it. There's no, with this cannot continue now. There's no Rick at all. I wonder what Rossi's going to do. This is his chance to go solo, do all these things he's been itching to do for the past 30, 40 years. And then they sprang up again as Status Quo with a full, nothing against that young lad Malone. I have nothing against him at all. But you don't replace Rick Parfitt in Status Quo. It's not Status Quo anymore.
It's a very hard thing to do. And to go back to the tickets thing for a moment, there are two sides to that, in that legally they were obliged to carry on. But I do agree with you that if Rick wasn't playing, they should have withdrew that. But then again, I believe the band have a little bit of a history of confusing, because I don't know whether you remember, but during the first Frantic Four reunion tour, there were still images of the modern band being advertised, and the marquee outside said Status Quo. Obviously they corrected it a year later with the Frantic Four, I think it said outside. But I think it's very confusing, because when a band has been around for as long as Quo have, and there's different lineups and they have different reunions and there's different things. I mean, I would imagine many people who are just casuals are just going now and may not even notice that Rick isn't there. I don't know. Like, it all depends really on the person.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And I've maybe got a hardline view, but the cynical side of me said, when they replaced especially Rick for the odd gig here and there when he wasn't well, and it was, we can't cancel because of insurances, it'll cost a fortune. But I seem to remember, following that point, Francis being ill a few times and gigs being postponed and cancelled. And I know he's the lead frontman, but if you can take Rick Parfitt out of the equation and stick somebody in, like I think Rhino's son played a couple of gigs, why can you not go ahead without Rossi if he's ill?
There does appear to be a tiny double standard there, but I suppose what might have happened is, with a lot of people like yourself, when Rick couldn't make it, maybe they might have found loads of people pulling out anyway, but trying to get refunds.
Yeah, I mean, I know it did seem to sell quite well initially, but then they pulled the trick of, well, we'll try it. This is the last of the Electrics, and I know a lot of people paid a lot of money to see him in certain places. And then one of the other things that's a bit of a bug with me, they then went on tour again, and it's like, well, hang on, you can't go on tour as Electrics because you've just done the last Electrics tour, and they're still touring now, electric, not acoustic, because it seemed at one point they were going to go fully acoustic, which I'll try not to comment too much on. I know there's a lot of fan base for that. I just didn't like it at all. The only thing I will say is for probably a good 20, 25 years, me and a few mates have discussed over the pints, here and there. We'd love to see Rossi and Parfit do an acoustic tour. And when we heard they were going to be planning it, we thought this is going to be amazing. It's going to be them two sat on a stool each, intimate venues, a bit of chat and kicking out a couple of Quo tracks on the old acoustic. And when they said they were breaking the tracks down to put them out acoustic, this is sounding good. And then they turned up with this massive band with backing singers and accordions, and it's like, what the hell is this? And I just found it horrible. There's a couple of tracks when you first hear the first few bars, kick in, you thought, oh, this is sounding all right, and then everything else kicked in, and it. I just felt embarrassed by it. I really did. It was like, no, this isn't happening. And then the band tried to fully tour on the acoustic, which didn't sell. It wasn't selling, and then that got upgraded to electric again. Unofficially, officially.
I can understand why it was a success, because it really worked in the mainstream. But like you say, for something called Stripped Bare, and yet there were more instruments on it than a normal Quo record.
Bonkers, absolutely. I think that they missed a trick. I think it could have been amazing, just those two guys with the acoustics, back to basics. Nice raw sound.
The only track that maybe fell true to that vision, certainly on the first album, was Rain.
Yeah, this would be embarrassing. I've heard very little. I've heard of a few skips here and there. I have not even played the album through. In fact, I don't even own it anymore. I think I just gave it to one of my mates in the end. I just couldn't face it. That's awful, isn't it? Really, it really is. For a supposed Quo fan, I do not own the acoustic stuff.
Well, no, because like I've said on previous podcasts with guests, there's such a wide selection of people going down the generations. And the thing is, Quo have tried so many of these publicity stunts, because that's essentially what acoustic felt like, at least at first. It felt like a giant publicity stunt. So, it's what they do, and some of them have got fans. I mean, there's Rock Till You Drop and the covers albums and all things like that. And they've got the people that loved it, and they've also got the people that despised it for whatever reason.
Yeah, the other thing about the now with Quo as they are, I don't even like calling them Quo, the band as it is now, is now if I am wrong with this viewpoint, do correct me, and I really hope I am. But I have still got huge contempt for Rossi in particular, because I have yet to hear any kind of on-stage memorial or dedication of Rick Parfit since he died with the band on stage. I haven't heard of anybody mention anything from any single gig they've done so far. And if that is still the case, it's incredibly bad taste.
Have you been to see his talking tour?
No. At the moment, I can't even stomach listening to Quo or with Ross. Even in the car, I've got a file now to one side, which is Parfit and Lancaster stuff, because I get angry when I hear Rossi or see him interviewed. I know everyone's got their own individual things about how they feel, how they deal with stuff, and I'm quite sure there's personal stuff that has nothing to do with anyone apart from Francis and Rick. Fair enough, but as the face of the band, to put it into context, you look at Brian May and Queen with Adam Lambert. Every single night of every single gig they do, on more than one occasion, someone will mention Freddie. And rightfully so. Quo, nothing.
No, well, as I say, on the talking tour, he does mention Rick quite a lot, and in some ways it's a tribute. But I know what you mean about the actual live gigs things. I think the thinking behind it is that Rossi always says that he's not for nostalgia, and yet most of his yeah.
So hilarious. You do know where they're playing this weekend and who they're playing on the bill with, don't you? They're playing with Betty Boo. They're playing with Betty Boo this weekend, but they don't do nostalgia. On the Let's Rock tour, there's Jimmy Somerville, Betty Boo, but he doesn't do nostalgia. Well, what the hell are you doing on that bill then, mate?
No, it is funny because they have headlined quite a lot of 80s tours.
Yeah, Tiffany last year was with them. nothing against Tiffany. She's even got a rock album out, apparently, from her drug days. But when you've got someone who completely disregards things like the Frantic Four and turns his nose and says, I don't want to do that, I don't do nostalgia, but is now blazoned on a poster underneath, you've got the name Betty Boo. You've got to really look at this and say, what the hell is going on with that man's thinking? How stupid does he think we are?
The interesting thing is that when they did the Frantic Four tour, they brought in some newer tracks that they'd not played for years, things like Blue-Eyed Lady. I don't think they'd ever played that live. And then, of course, they started bringing it into the modern band.
And if you look at the set list, I dare say from the tours they're doing now, I would, even though I've not been to see him for a few years, I'm guessing 80% is pre-86.
Yes, yeah, I think most of it is, apart from some of the modern tracks that they play. I'm sure they're still playing Beginning of the End and a couple of others from the new album.
And you, in regards to touring over here, you probably find it as a funny story, but it still bothers me to this day. The last time they played up in Derry, which would be, I think, 7 years ago now, we were hoping to go. We couldn't go. Circumstances got right. We couldn't get up there to go. But anyway, my father-in-law worked in a little club. The local town's called Ballymena, and we lived just outside, literally, a minute away. We went in on the, I'm sure it was a Saturday as well, on the late Saturday afternoon, and he just walked in from his shift, and he said, "Oh, you all right?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Oh, you'll never guess who was in Boozer today." And normally it's empty, it's the place on an afternoon, there's never anyone in there. I said, "Who?" He goes, "Oh, well, this large gentleman walked in and had a look round, and he said, 'Are you open?' Because it's set off the main street. It's not Big Ballymena itself, but this club is set off the main street." He said, yeah, we're open. Oh, and he said, "All right, thanks a lot." And he disappeared, and he came back 2 minutes later with Rossi and Parfit. And my father-in-law knows I'm a huge, at the time, Quo fan. Didn't think it was relevant to give me a call. And I'm like, "What?" I said, what do you mean? He says, "Oh, yeah, the kid," he said, "the science pool room just slipping, I think, of cokes." And now he's a fan of Quo. He's a fan. I said, "What did you say to him?" He says, "Well, I'm not going to let on that I knew the word, boost their egos." So there's literally a father-in-law, a local in there, sat with his pint of God knows what, and apparently Rossi and Parfit. I didn't know how to respond. I couldn't get the words out. I'm like, who was what, where? What? Why did you not call? Why should I call you? It's like Rossi and Parfit in the pub.
We've got to come to the end of the podcast because it's only a certain amount of time, yes, unfortunately. But would love to talk to you again because you seem to be a mind of stories.
Oh, I've got. I mean, not that anyone wants to hear what I say. I've got so much to say, but yeah, we'd probably best leave it as end of part one, as they say, mate. It's end of part one.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, okay, mate. Glad to speak to you, and hopefully we can do this again soon.